Continuing on with our February series devoted to money and affording full-time travel, let's talk about the 3 numbers that you need to figure out to determine whether full-time travel is affordable for you. Welcome to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markel. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. In the last episode, we talked about the need to start looking at the numbers to get out of circling around in the belief that full-time travel isn't affordable. One more thought on that. If you listened to last week's episode and did not take action, why not? What idea or feeling or belief are you clinging onto that's holding you back? And what's one small thing that would help you move forward? Write down the answers to those questions because the awareness alone will help you a lot. Okay, so for today's episode, what I've seen is that a lot of people who are thinking about traveling full-time, even if it might be for a sabbatical or a career break, they think they need this perfect budget, like maybe even a 5-year plan or complete certainty before they can decide whether full-time travel is possible. But the truth is, they don't. What they actually need as a starting point is clarity that the lifestyle is affordable for them. And clarity comes from 3 specific numbers. If you don't know these numbers, then naturally, as I talked about before, your brain starts filling in those gaps with all of the worst case scenarios, and I'm sure that you've got a never-ending supply. And your nervous system, right, is on overdrive. And so hesitation starts to feel like responsibility. But once you know these numbers, something shifts right away. So let's talk about the only 3 numbers that really matter in moving towards that clarity that you want. So the first number is your true monthly baseline. And this one is not what you think you spent, right? That is too easy. I can't tell you how often, right? You say, oh, how often do you spend a month? They're like, oh, about this much, about that much. Nope, not that number. This is what actually leaves your bank account every month. Things like your rent or your mortgage, how much you spend on food, any insurance you have, subscriptions that, trust me, you forgot you had. Somewhere there are a bunch of them that you have just forgotten about. And then lifestyle expenses that quietly just add up while you're not looking. I remember talking to a client once who, when I made her do this exercise and she was complaining about not having enough money, she was spending like $1,000 a week on dining out and I don't know what. I mean, it was really eye-opening. So trust me, you need to really, truly look at these numbers. And most people have never calculated this number honestly, right? So as a result, they overestimate how much they need and they underestimate how much flexibility they actually have. So until you know your real baseline, every decision is going to feel risky. But once you know the number, fear starts to lose its grip. Now, I remember before I started traveling full-time, I actually took a financial planning 101 class, and it blew my mind. All the numbers that before this class had scared me became my powerful awareness of how much money I had, how much I needed, and even areas where I could curb my spending. So it made me feel so much more powerful. So the second number to look at is your minimum realistic travel cost. So let's get real on this. Full-time travel is a lifestyle. It is not a vacation. I've said this before. So no, this is not Instagram travel. It is not a luxury fantasy. And it is not someone else's version of freedom. What would it cost you to live and move in a sustainable way? Each of us is going to be considering a different pace because your style of travel is not going to be the same as mine. We'll be looking at different locations. Obviously, we all want to go different places. And of course, we all have different standards of comfort. So when people actually calculate this number, they're usually shocked by how much lower it is to afford a travel lifestyle than to afford their current lifestyle, especially once they remove the expenses that only exist to support a life they don't even want. This number matters because it replaces fantasy with reality. The third number to look at is your freedom runway. And this is the number that really almost no one looks at. And it's the one that creates the most feeling of calm and power in you, right? Your runway is how long your savings can support you while you transition. It's not forever. It's not what if everything goes wrong. It's just how much time do you realistically have to experiment, adjust, and figure things out? And really, this is a number that even if you're listening to this podcast and your dream is to, start a business or change your life in a different way, this is the same information for you, the same power for you, the same number to look at. Because when you look at this number and you know this number, then your panic turns into planning. Because now, instead of asking, can I do this? You're asking, how do I want to use this time? And that, my friend, is a powerful shift. Here's why these three numbers change everything. They move you out of those emotional spirals and dips and into informed choice. They turn, I can't afford it, into here's what it would take. And that's the moment that people stop circling and start moving. You don't need certainty to begin. You need enough information to decide responsibly. And once you have that, waiting stops making sense. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I want to calculate these numbers properly, this is where the Freedom Funding Blueprint comes in. The blueprint is where I walk you step by step through identifying your core numbers accurately, calmly, no guesswork, so that you can begin to understand in a safe way, without quitting your job or feeling like you have to jump off a cliff, how to add up the numbers and how to make full-time travel affordable on your terms. You'll even set a realistic departure timeline based on your own calculations. This isn't about budgeting harder. It's about replacing anxiety with clarity. And once you have that clarity, decision-making gets a lot easier. You'll find the Freedom Funding Blueprint linked in the show notes below. So if you're done guessing and ready to know where you actually stand, this is your next step. This month, we're talking about money and how to afford full-time travel. Not in a hypothetical way, but practically. So if you're ready to replace your fear with real numbers, the next step is in the show notes. Let's stop circling and start creating this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.